The penthouse suite at the Crystal Grand Hotel blazed with light on the night before the wedding. I stood in the center of the room, holding a cup of freshly brewed jasmine tea, waiting carefully for Olivia to emerge from the dressing room. The tea was her ritual. She had to drink half a cup every night before bed. The temperature had to be exactly 110 degrees. Not 1 degree more, not 1 degree less. 3 years. I had engraved this habit into my bones. Even when I traveled for work, I'd call ahead to the hotel and ask them to prepare a thermos. She finally came out. The couture wedding dress flown in from Paris enveloped her body. The mermaid silhouette traced her slender waistline, and tens of thousands of Swarovski crystals scattered the light into tiny fragments. Her 3 bridesmaids gasped in admiration. The makeup artist snapped photos on her phone. Even the waiter at the door couldn't help but stare. I walked over with the tea, trying to hand it to her. "Olivia, the tea's ready." She took a sip. Her brow immediately furrowed. Then she let go. The white porcelain cup shattered against the marble floor. Shards scattered across the tiles along with warm tea. A few fragments bounced onto the hem of her wedding dress, catching a fine thread and pulling it loose. I instinctively crouched down to pick up the pieces. "Ethan," her voice dropped from above me like an icicle. I looked up. Olivia's face was cold as frozen meat straight from the freezer. Her eyes, the same ones her friends gushed over as tender and warm on her social media, held only one thing now: disgust. Pure, unfiltered, bone-deep disgust. The 3 bridesmaids fell silent instantly. The makeup artist put her phone away and retreated to the corner. The waiter stared at his own shoes. "Oh, you know how much this dress cost?" She asked. 85,000. I said 85,000 as she repeated it, then laughed. That laugh sent a chill down my spine. "Have you ever even earned 85,000 in your life, Ethan? You make 1,200 a month. After rent, you've got 400 left. What's the most expensive thing you've given me in 3 years?" "A $200 MK bag. I gave it to my mom to hold her vegetables." I stayed crouched, my fingers clutching the shards. Blood seeped between them. I didn't feel the pain. "Stand up," she said. I stood. "Kneel." I didn't move. One of the bridesmaids let out a small gasp. Olivia turned and shot her a look, then turned back to me, curling the corner of her mouth. I said, "Kneel. You ruined my dress. Don't you think you should get down and clean it? Go get a towel. Kneel and wipe the tea stains off the floor." "Olivia." One bridesmaid finally spoke up. "Shut up." Olivia cut her off. "Anyone who speaks up for him can get out of my bridal party starting tomorrow." The room went so quiet I could hear the hum of the central air conditioning. I looked at her. She looked at me. 3 years ago at the company holiday party, she'd smiled at me with crescent moon eyes and said, "Ethan, your code is amazing." Back then, I thought it was love. Now I knew. It was target acquisition. I reached over to the side table and grabbed a towel. Then I knelt in front of her. My knees hit the porcelain fragments. The sharp sting crawled up my nerves. I kept my head down. Wiping the marble floor inch by inch. Cleaning the residual tea stains. Olivia's heels were right in front of me. The thin stiletto tips clicked against the floor. Once, twice, see. Her voice grew light again, with a touch of playful teasing. As she turned to the bridesmaids. "Shattered pieces bring peace. Tomorrow's wedding will go perfectly." The bridesmaids forced out awkward laughs. I finished. The floor was clean of water and debris. The towel was stained with my blood and the murky brown of old tea. When I stood up, my knees buckled slightly. But my face still held the same expression it had worn for 3 years, docile, even groveling. With a hint of a smile. "Olivia, I need to change my pants. Go ahead." She didn't even look at me. She was already adjusting her veil in the mirror, discussing the wedding entrance music with the bridesmaids. I walked into the bathroom and closed the door. I turned on the faucet. Cold water rushed over the cuts on my fingers. The blood thinned and reappeared. I looked at my face in the mirror. Pale, eyes rimmed red. The stiff smile on my lips finally crumbled. 3 years. 3 whole years. I got up at 6 every morning to make her breakfast. I worked overtime until 10 and still came home to massage her shoulders. She said she wanted the candied chestnuts from the old shop across town. I rode my scooter 40 miles through pouring rain to get them. She took one bite, said they weren't sweet enough, and threw the whole bag in the trash. I took it all. Because I thought she was just temperamental. Spoiled from childhood. That things would get better after we were married. Until just now. The moment she looked at her phone. After she'd cursed me out. After she'd made me kneel. Her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen, then quickly turned it off. The corner of her mouth twitched upward that I knew that expression too well. It was the same one she made every time she got a red envelope from me. A soup I'd simmered for hours, the surprise I'd carefully planned. But this time I was only a step away. I clearly saw the WhatsApp notification, the contact name, Mr. Zhao, the preview text at the top, baby. When the wedding's over tomorrow. Come to the usual place. I've ordered king crab. I didn't see the rest. She'd turned off the screen too quickly. But those two words, baby, burned into my eyes like red-hot iron. I stood in the bathroom for a long time. The faucet stayed on, the rushing water drowning out the laughter from the other room. I pulled out my own phone and opened my chat history with Olivia. 3 years. She called me Ethan. Not even a nickname. Sometimes she skipped my name entirely and just sent K, baby. She'd never once called me baby. I turned off the water, dried the blood off my fingers with a tissue. And did 3 things. First, I opened my phone's notes app and wrote down what I'd seen. Mr. Zhao. Second, I reached into the bottom of the closet and pulled out a brown paper envelope. Inside was the money I'd saved secretly over the past 3 years, a total of $18,000. I'd planned to use it for our honeymoon. To buy her a bag she'd been eyeing. Third, I sent a message to my college roommate, Mark. Tomorrow, bring a mini projector and a pair of Bluetooth speakers. Be discreet. Don't let anyone notice. Mark replied instantly. Just follow my lead. Ethan. Are you okay? You're getting married tomorrow. You're asking me to bring a projector. I stared at my phone screen. My fingers hovering over the keyboard for a long time. Then I typed one line. You'll find out tomorrow. I took a deep breath, opened the bathroom door. And walked out. Olivia was sitting on the sofa filing her nails. She glanced up at me and said 2 words. The tea's cold. I'll make a fresh cup. I said. Hurry up. I'm tired. As I carried the freshly brewed tea back into the room. I heard her on the phone. Her voice was low, but the penthouse suite soundproofing was so good that the suppressed, syrupy sweetness became painfully clear. Yeah, he's still here. Acts like a dog. I'll come find you after it's over tomorrow. Don't rush me. I softened my footsteps, set the tea on the coffee table. And quietly retreated to my own temporary room. I closed the door, slid down against the door panel, and sat on the floor. Buried my face in my knees. The tears finally fell, but I made no sound, because I knew that if she heard me crying, she'd only enjoy it more. Outside the window, the city glittered with night views. Neon lights stained half the sky in ambiguous purple-red. I looked up at the crystal chandelier on the ceiling. Wiped my face. And swallowed every ounce of weakness and tears back down. 3 years. I'd never said no to her once. Tomorrow, I was going to make everyone understand why Ethan Carter, this pathetic doormat of a man, would have Olivia Bennett begging on her knees. My phone buzzed. Mark had sent a photo. It showed a small black device in his hand. Got it. I'll bring it in tomorrow. I replied with 1 word. Good. Then I opened my laptop and typed in the passwords for Olivia's cloud backup accounts. All her passwords were set by me. Birthdays. Anniversaries. Her lucky numbers. I could type them blindfolded, but this time I paused for a few seconds before hitting enter. Once I opened this door, there was no closing it again. I pressed the key. What appeared on the screen made my fingers tremble. Thousands of photos, hundreds of chat logs, hotel reservations, flight itineraries, shopping records, all under one name. Thomas Zhao. I scrolled up to the timestamp on the first photo. 2 years ago. 2 years. Our first year together. So my love had been a joke from the very beginning. I shut the laptop and tucked it back into my bag. Then I lay down on the bed. The ceiling was so white it hurt my eyes. I closed them. Listening to the sounds of laughter from next door, Olivia and her bridesmaids joking around. And told myself over and over, Ethan, don't soften. She never loved you. She only loved having you as her dog. Tomorrow, I'm going to turn that dog into the worst nightmare of her life. At 3 in the morning. I woke up. The room was dark, only a sliver of streetlight slipping through the gap in the curtains. I grabbed my phone. The screen's brightness made me squint. Mark had texted at 1 a.m. Bro, are you sure about this? This is going to blow up. I replied. I'm sure. Then I walked barefoot to the window and pulled the curtain open a crack. The city at night lay silent as a painting submerged in water. Headlights occasionally swept across the distant overpass like shooting stars. I stared for a long time, long enough that the heated floor burned my soul's. 2 years. Over 700 days. The first thing Olivia ever said to me was, your code is amazing. The second was, are you free tonight? Let me take you to dinner. I was flattered. She was a marketing assistant manager. Beautiful. From a good family. Her line of suitors stretched from the company entrance to the subway station. And me? I was the lowest level programmer in the tech department. Black-rimmed glasses. Plaid shirts. Completely invisible in a crowd. She took me for sushi. She said she loved salmon. I quietly made a mental note. Later, every payday. I'd take her out for it. Back then she'd still smile and say, "Ethan, you're so thoughtful." She'd brush a strand of hair from my forehead when I looked down. I thought that was love. I thought meeting her was the luckiest thing that had ever happened to me, but I'd never once wondered why me. Now I knew. Because I was the lowest level programmer in the tech department. Easy to control. Least likely to rebel. Least likely to uncover her secrets. Thomas Zhao needed a safe point 100% perfect cover. A disposable placeholder with zero threat. And I was the textbook ideal candidate. I sat back down on the edge of the bed and opened my laptop again. Last night I'd only skimmed. Now I needed to organize all the evidence by category and make sure tomorrow went flawlessly. What I found in the cloud backup was devastating. Category 1, photos. 2 years worth. Olivia and Thomas Zhao together in hotel rooms across at least 6 cities. An ocean view suite in Miami. A cabin in the Smokies. The Ritz-Carlton in Chicago. Once right at the Intercontinental next to our office building. The night she told me she was working late. Category 2, chat logs. I screenshot them one by one. He called her kitten. She called him babe. The messages ranged from work to flirting. From complaining Ethan made me porridge again. So annoying to scheming Ethan's working late tomorrow. Come to my place. Every word cut like a blade. Category 3, financial records. Thomas Zhao's bank transfers to Olivia. Total, about $500,000. For her car. Her bags. And the down payment on the apartment she claimed she bought herself. Now I knew that apartment was their love nest. Category 4, travel schedules. I created a timeline of their business trips and vacations. Every time she told me she was visiting her parents, at least 7 of those trips were actually vacations with Zhao. Twice she brought her mother along. And her mother even took photos with Zhao. That meant her whole family knew. Except her father. I found one screenshot that a text Olivia sent her mom. "Mom, don't tell Dad. You know he's old-fashioned. He'll have a heart attack." Her mom replied with a smiley emoji and one line. I know. You kids have your fun. I saved that screenshot in a separate folder. Outside. The sky slowly brightened. A pale blue-gray appeared on the horizon. The city's silhouette grew clearer. I closed the laptop and checked the time. 5:20 a.m. 5 hours and 40 minutes until the wedding began. I went to the bathroom and splashed water on my face. The man in the mirror was still the same face, but the eyes had changed. Before they'd held nothing but eagerness and fear. Now they held cold composure and resolve. I pulled the corners of my mouth into a practiced smile. Docile. Obedient. Exactly the same as before. Perfect. Still looks like a dog. I put on the suit I'd prepared the night before. Tied my tie in front of the mirror. Then I picked up my phone and called Mark. "You're up?" he said. His voice heavy with exhaustion. "Ethan, what the hell are you doing? I've known you 10 years. You've never been this unsettling. Get me into the AV room behind the main hall. Pair the Bluetooth speakers to my phone before the ceremony starts. Then find a reason to leave that you're really going through with." Mark. I cut him off. "Do you remember junior year? When I had a 104-degree fever and you carried me to the campus clinic? You tripped and busted your knee open. And the first thing you did was check on me." The phone went quiet for a few seconds. "Yeah, I remember. Then do you trust me?" "Yeah." "Then do what I said." I hung up and deleted Mark's chat history and call log. Then I picked up Olivia's backup phone from the nightstand. She slept like the dead. She'd never know I'd touched it. I changed the contact name Mr. Zoto something innocuous. Dave. Then I screenshot the key chats and sent them to myself. I put the phone back exactly where I found it. Finally. I looked at the sleeping figure on the bed one last time. She was curled on her side. Her long hair spread across the pillow. A faint smile on her lips, like she was dreaming of something sweet. Maybe in her dream, she was eating king crab with Thomas Zhao. Maybe after the wedding tomorrow, she'd be off to meet him. Too bad. Her plans were about to fall apart. I gently closed the door behind me and walked down to the hotel lobby. Mark was already waiting in the seating area. A nondescript black backpack at his feet. He stood when he saw me approach. His mouth opening and closing, but nothing coming out. Finally, he just handed me the bag. "There are 2 sets inside," he said quietly. One for you as backup. The other I already placed in the AV room during setup. I tested the speakers last night. They can cover the whole banquet hall. Thanks, Mark. Ethan. He gripped my wrist. Are you sure you know what you're doing? Everyone's going to be there today. Your boss, her father's business partners. Hundreds of people. I looked at him and smiled lightly. I know. That's exactly why I need them all to see. Mark let go and sighed. All right, take care of yourself. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a thumb drive. There's security footage on here. For those nights, she said she was working late. I had a friend pull the company lobby cameras. She never once walked through those doors. I took the thumb drive and closed my fingers around it. Mark clapped my shoulder and walked away. I sat on the lobby sofa for a while. Hotel staff came and went. Arranging flower arrangements and welcome signs. Waiters wheeled breakfast carts past, the trays laden with delicate Danish pastries and fresh fruit. Everything looked normal, refined, perfectly warm. Nobody knew what was about to happen. I stood up and walked to the elevator. As the door slid shut, I caught my reflection in the polished metal. The obedient smile I'd practiced all morning was flawless. The cold glint in my eyes was hidden by the door's mirrored surface. All right, time to go get my bride. The wedding was held in the Crystal Grand's largest ballroom. 360 tables down nearly the entire third floor. Chandeliers hung from the 30-foot ceiling, casting a golden glow over the entire hall. A red carpet stretched from the entrance to the stage, lined with fresh white roses and pink hydrangeas. Olivia's choice. She said red roses were too tacky for her taste. The backdrop was a massive LED screen cycling through our engagement photos. She looked sweet and radiant in every shot. Beside her, I stood like a happy idiot. And now I was standing exactly where that idiot was supposed to be. Backstage in the dressing room, waiting to enter. Olivia was fully dressed, making final adjustments in front of the mirror. She wore the repaired wedding gown. The scratches from last night had been patched up with invisible stitching. Impossible to notice unless you looked closely. She hooked her arm through mine, her nails digging into my sleeve. In a voice only I could hear, she said, "Straighten your back. Don't embarrass me. Smile nicely." I smiled. Nodded. My spine ramrod straight. The wedding march began. The ballroom doors swung open. Spotlights hit the entrance. Olivia, on her father's arm, stepped onto the red carpet. Her train stretched 3 yards behind her, carried by 2 flower girls. She wore a sweet smile, nodding to guests on both sides, occasionally dabbing at her eyes with a practiced gesture, the touching portrayal of a bride overcome with emotion. Guests rose to applaud. I caught snippets of whispered conversations. Beautiful bride, isn't she? I heard Ethan's basically marrying into the family. Lucky guy. With the Bennett family's connections and his salary. He hit the jackpot. I stood center stage, smiling, watching her walk toward me. When she reached me, her father placed her hand in mine. "Ethan," he said, "I'm trusting you with my daughter. Take good care of her." "Of course, sir." The word "sir" left a sour taste in my stomach, but my smile didn't waver. Olivia clasped my hand, her nails digging in again. She was still smiling, but whispered through clenched teeth, "Your hands are freezing." "Don't embarrass me." I said nothing. I just held her hand and led her up onto the stage. The MC was a moderately well-known local host in a 3-piece suit, booming voice, and a rehearsed script. He introduced both families. Olivia's father, Daniel Bennett, the owner of a local construction materials company. Her mother, Linda, a homemaker. My father wasn't there. I told everyone he was unwell. In truth, he'd passed away 3 years ago. My mother had divorced him when I was 10, and I'd never seen her since. The MC warmed up the crowd and moved to the vows. "Ethan Carter." He raised the microphone, beaming. "Do you take Olivia Bennett to be your lawfully wedded wife? To have, and to hold from this day forward, for better, or for worse, for richer, or for poorer, that I in sickness and in health, to love, and to cherished, till death do you part." The room went quiet. Hundreds of eyes on me. Cameras zoomed in. The giant screen projected my face, magnified. I took the microphone. Then I did something nobody expected. I let go of Olivia's hand. Stepped forward. Looked out at the sea of faces below. "Before I answer that question," I said to my voice carrying through every speaker in the ballroom, "that I want to tell you all a story. A story about loyalty and betrayal." A ripple of murmurs went through the crowd. The MC froze, looking at the wedding coordinator. The coordinator was frantically gesturing for me to cut it out. Olivia's smile froze for a beat. Then she leaned in, hissing through her teeth, "Ethan, have you lost your mind? Give me the microphone. I ignored her point. 3 years ago. I met a girl, I went on. She was beautiful, smart. When she smiled, her eyes curved into crescents. I fell for her the moment I saw her. I thought I'd spend the rest of my life making her happy. For 3 years I got up at 6 every morning to make her breakfast. I came home from work and massaged her shoulders. I rode my scooter 40 miles in the rain to buy her candied chestnuts. She told me my code was amazing. So I worked overtime to get promoted. I thought this was love. I thought one day my efforts would earn her heart in return. The ballroom was dead silent. People exchanged uneasy glances. Olivia's face had gone white. She reached for the microphone. I sidestepped her, but then I found out. My voice began to shake, but every word dropped clearly into the guest's ears. All these 3 years, she never loved me. She was with me because I was obedient, useful, and safe. Because with me as her fiancée, she had the perfect cover to date, sleep with, and vacation with another man right under everyone's noses. And everyone thought she was just a normal girl in a normal relationship. Ethan, shut up. Olivia's voice turned shrill. She lunged at me, grabbing my arm, her nails sinking into my flesh. With all her strength, she slapped me across the face. The crack echoed through the ballroom. The microphone nearly fell from my hand. Guests rose to their feet. Shrieks. Phones came out, recording. Daniel Bennett stood up from the head table, his face purple. Ethan, what the hell are you doing? What kind of lies are you spreading? Security. Security. I brought the microphone back to my mouth and looked directly at the furious middle-aged man below. Mr. Bennett, I said, clearly and distinctly. Your daughter has checked into hotel rooms with her lover 127 times in the last 2 years. The apartment she claims she bought. Her lover paid the down payment. The car, also paid for by him. The 7 times she told you she was visiting her parents. She was with him. At the beach. In the mountains. In 5-star hotels. You think I'm lying? Then let me show you the proof. I reached into my suit jacket and pressed the tiny remote. Behind me, the projector hummed to life. The LED screen switched from our engagement photos to a slideshow. Photo 1. Olivia kissing a middle-aged man on a Miami beach. Photo 2. A hotel room selfie. A Ritz-Carlton robe in the background. Photo 3. Olivia behind the wheel of a Porsche, smiling brightly, with the same man in the passenger seat. The photos kept cycling, each more explicit than the last. A collective gasp swept through the crowd like a gust of wind. Olivia screamed, "Turn it off! Turn it off!" She ran like a woman possessed toward the control booth at the back of the stage. Her train caught under her heels, and she stumbled, falling flat on the stage. Her veil twisted sideways. Crystal clips flew off. She scrambled up and kept running, the dress tearing open along the side, exposing her thigh. But she didn't care. All she cared about was those photos, every one of them pushing her further into the abyss. I'd had Mark lock the control booth door the night before. She shoved at it. It wouldn't open. She spun around, her makeup ruined, the tears cutting tracks through her foundation and eyeliner, a mask that had been shattered. "Ethan," she shrieked. "You're insane. Those are photoshopped. They're fake. Turn them off." From the crowd, someone shouted, "Fake. They look pretty damn real. Who's that guy? He looks familiar. Isn't that Mr. Zhao? The company VP, oh my God." The murmuring swelled like a tide. The head table. Thomas Zhao had gone white as paper. He was in his 40s, well-maintained, the picture of success. Now he sat gripping the armrests of his chair, knuckles bone white, lips trembling wordlessly. His wife was beside him, a haggard-looking woman. She stared at him, her whole body shaking. "Thomas," she said, not loud, but everyone in the front row heard it. "You said you were coming to an employee's wedding. What the hell is this?" Thomas stood up, backing away. "Honey, listen, this is all a misunderstanding. I don't even know her, don't even know her." From the stage, I tapped my phone again. The screen switched to a voice recording. The audio came through every Bluetooth speaker in the room. "Baby, when the wedding's over tomorrow, come to the usual place. I've ordered king crab. I miss you." Thomas's syrupy, oily voice, so unmistakable that the echo of his "I don't even know her" hadn't even faded before his own words gutted his lie. The crowd exploded. His wife grabbed an unopened wine bottle from the table and hurled it at him. He ducked. The bottle smashed against the wall behind him, glass spraying. The guests on either side shrieked and scrambled out of the way. "You animal!" She lunged at him, pounding him with her fists. "I stayed home raising the kids for 10 years, and you've been messing around with some young thing. For 2 years. And you think I wouldn't find out? Thomas tried to shield his head, his suit jacket tearing, buttons popping loose. In the chaos, he yelped. She came onto me. She seduced me. She said she'd sleep with me if I got her promoted. I wasn't thinking straight. That was gasoline on the fire. Olivia came charging down from the stage. Barefoot, dress in tatters. She ran through the scattered flowers and broken crystals and lunged at Thomas, grabbing him by the hair. She shrieked, hysterical. You son of a bitch. You told me you were leaving your wife. You promised we'd be together after I broke up with Ethan. Now you're throwing me under the bus. Where's your conscience, Thomas? He was furious now too. He shoved her back. I'm throwing you. You threw yourself at me. You paraded around the office in skirts, so short you might as well have been naked. You sent me photos at midnight that you think that wasn't for a promotion. Don't act innocent. You're nothing but a whore. They devolved into a brawl right there on the floor. Olivia's dress shredded completely. Thomas's face was scratched bloody. People tried to pull them apart, but neither would let go. I stood on the stage and watched. Pain. Of course it hurt. She was someone I'd loved with everything I had for 3 years. And now she was rolling on the floor like a rabid dog, tearing into another man. But underneath was a deeper cold. For 2 years when she'd lain next to me in bed, she'd been thinking of him. When she pouted and cooed at me, she was simultaneously texting someone else to say how annoying I was. I looked away from the spectacle and locked eyes with Daniel Bennett. He was already climbing onto the stage, his face twitching, eyes bloodshot. He grabbed my collar and shoved me back, hissing low in my ear. Have you lost your goddamn mind? You've humiliated my family in front of everyone. Delete all this. Now. I'll pay you. Name your price. I looked at him. A shrewd, ruthless businessman. Too smart for his own good. Mr. Bennett, I said evenly. Where was this energy when your daughter was sleeping around? That's bullshit. All of it. Fake. I laughed. I pulled out my phone and opened a folder. Then take a look at this. A photo of your wife and your future son-in-law. Or I guess your daughter's lover. What should I call him? She calls him babe. What does your wife call him? I projected a screenshot onto the big screen. Olivia's text to her mother. Mom, don't tell Dad. You know he's old-fashioned. He'll have a heart attack. Her mom replied. I know. I know. You kids have your fun. Linda shrieked from the audience, covering her mouth as she collapsed into her chair. Daniel stared at that text. His pupils contracting violently. He released my collar. Stumbled back. Collided with the flower arrangement on the edge of the stage. White roses and pink hydrangeas crashed to the floor. Linda. His voice was hollow. Scraped raw. You knew. Linda said nothing. She was curled in her seat. Face buried in her hands. Shoulders heaving. Daniel walked down the steps slowly. He reached his wife. Grabbed her hands. And yanked them away from her face. Her makeup was a wreck. Mascara and lipstick smeared across her chin. Answer me, he said. She sobbed. Daniel. I was afraid. Olivia said, but she said she'd handle it. Handle it. He threw his head back and laughed, a horrible chilling sound. Then he slapped her across the face. The crack echoed through the silent ballroom. Even the fight in the corner had gone still for a moment. You two. Daniel pointed at Linda. His hand shaking like a leaf. I've spent 30 years building my reputation in this city. Every business partner respects me. And you two have dragged my name through the gutter in front of hundreds of people. He turned back to me, eyes blazing. Ethan. I never should have let Olivia marry you. Who the hell do you think you are? You're nothing. Without my family you couldn't even find a decent job. And now you're biting the hand that fed you. You think you've won. I'll destroy you. Just you wait. I met his gaze. Put my phone away. And spoke slowly. Deliberately. Mr. Bennett, there's something you don't know. Your daughter got together with me because Thomas Zhao told her to. He needed an inconspicuous cover, someone disposable. And your daughter needed a boyfriend she could control, someone who'd help her hide everything. Hell. When they chose me, Zhao actually said, find someone quiet. Someone who won't make waves. Gasps rippled through the crowd. I was that quiet one. I smiled. And this time I didn't bother hiding the cold in my eyes. Well, I'm making waves now. How do you like it? Olivia finally dragged herself up from the floor. Her hair was wild, her dress rags. Her face was bruised, her lip bloody. She came at me slowly, her eyes flashing with something unhinged. Ethan. Her voice was a wrecked rasp. You destroyed me. You destroyed yourself. I said I'll kill you. She lunged. I didn't move. 2 security guards grabbed her before she reached me. She kicked, shrieked, clawed, a cornered animal. I turned to face the crowd. 360 tables. Over 1,000 people. I bowed deeply. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for the spectacle today. The wedding is canceled. I'll arrange for the hotel to return your gifts. I'm sorry for taking up your time. I straightened up and walked out through the side door. Behind me, chaos. Curses, crying, screaming, whispers. I walked down the hallway, down the stairs, out the hotel's main entrance. The March wind was still cold. I stood on the steps and took a deep breath. The tears came, but I was laughing. I didn't go far. I sat on the edge of the flower bed outside the hotel, watching the cars go by. I took out a cigarette. I didn't smoke often, but right now I needed something to hold down the bile rising in my throat. The wind carried faint shouts from inside the hotel. Too far to make out, but I could imagine. The show wasn't over yet. Sure enough, 15 minutes later my phone started blowing up. First text, from a coworker. Ethan, you're insane. Thomas Zhao just got taken away in cuffs. Second text, from another coworker. Check the company group chat. It's exploding. Someone in finance anonymously leaked evidence of tax fraud and embezzlement. Someone called the cops. They were waiting outside when he walked out. Third, Mark calling. I answered. Ethan, did you see? Zhao got cuffed and hauled out. His wife went with him to the station. Still screaming. Olivia went completely unhinged in the ballroom. Her father finally dragged her out. Her mother passed out twice. They had to call an ambulance. Yeah, I said. Are you okay? I blew out a stream of smoke. Watching it dissolve in the wind. Better than I've been in 3 years. Where are you? I'll come find you. Don't. I stubbed out the cigarette. I need some time alone. I hung up and sat on the flower bed. My phone kept vibrating. Texts from coworkers, friends, even acquaintances I hadn't spoken to in years. Are you okay? Why didn't you say something sooner? Dude, you're a legend. I didn't reply to any of them. Then an unknown number called. I stared at the screen for a few seconds. Then answered. A woman's voice, crying. Old. Exhausted. Hello? Is this Ethan? This is. Who's speaking? The voice trembled. Son, I'm your mother. I gripped the phone tighter. The wind suddenly felt bone cold. You have the wrong number, I said. No. No, I don't. I left when you were 10. I know you hate me, but I had to call you today. There are things you need to know. I stood up, crushed the cigarette, and moved to a quieter corner. Go on. Then she told me. Every word hit me like a meteor. She said that my biological father was not the factory worker I'd grown up believing was my dad. That man was my stepfather. My real father was a man named Charles Shun, one of the biggest real estate developers in the state. 30 years ago, Charles Shun had a partner, his best friend and brother in all but blood. That partner was Daniel Bennett. They'd built projects together. Charles provided the capital and resources. Daniel brought the connections. Then a $1 billion urban renewal project went up for bidding. Charles entrusted all the core bid data to Daniel, trusting him to secure it. Daniel turned around and sold that data to a competitor, and tipped off the IRS about every financial irregularity in Charles's company. Charles went bankrupt overnight. Crushed by debt, he had a fatal heart attack in his office. Daniel used that money, and the competitor's favors to build the Bennett empire. What's more, after Charles died, Daniel approached my mother under the guise of taking care of the widow that he married her. His goal? To take everything my father had left behind. He manipulated her into signing away stock rights and transferring my father's property. She eventually ran away. I divorced him 20 years ago. My mother wept. It wasn't until after I married him that I realized what he'd done. He ruined your father's life, and then he made a fool of me. I'm sorry, son. I was afraid that I knew he'd hurt you if he found you. I opened my mouth, but my throat closed up. But Ethan, her voice turned urgent. Do you know why Olivia came after you? It wasn't just to be Zhao's cover. Zhao, his father, was the competitor who teamed up with Daniel to destroy yours. The whole family. They've been using you from the start. Daniel wanted you under his control. He would have had Olivia drain you dry. Lock down your identity, your money, your future. So you'd never find out who you really were. I crouched down. My knees hit the sidewalk, but I felt nothing. So that was my minimum wage job, my rundown apartment, my beat-up scooter, my penny dash pinching. My sacrifices. My humiliation. Every bit of it was orchestrated. They didn't need me to be rich. They didn't need me to be impressive. They just needed me to be obedient. So obedient I'd never question who I was. So obedient I'd never discover who my enemies were. My voice came out shredded. He killed my father. He stole our family fortune. He made you his wife for years. And you're only telling me this now because I was terrified. She sobbed. Daniel's too powerful. He knows too many people. But today I saw the wedding video online. You've already torn everything apart. He won't let this go. And I had to tell you who you are. So you can be careful. Where are you? I asked. I'm still here in Austin. I kept the old building your father bought years ago. The one he was converting into an art space. It's the only thing Daniel never got his hands on. I want to give it to you. Stay there, I said. Standing. I'm coming to find you. I hung up and stood by the flower bed for a long time. The sun was warm on my face, but I felt nothing. I remembered Daniel shouting at me in the ballroom. Who do you think you are? He knew exactly who I was. He'd sat there all those years watching me serve his daughter like a loyal dog. And he'd laughed inside. Because I was Charles Shun's son, serving the family that had destroyed him. I dug my nails into my palm. Then I made another call. To an attorney named Ms. Chun. My mother's old friend, who'd been quietly helping me gather evidence against Bennett's company for the past 3 years. Ms. Chun, I said. The Bennett construction files. Is there enough to file charges? Yes, she said. Forged contracts. Tax evasion. Commercial fraud. I've documented at least 7 violations. You want to submit them now? Now, I said. Compile them all and send them to me. I'll handle the rest. I hung up and took a deep breath. No room for softness now. Zhao was gone. Olivia was ruined. But it wasn't enough. Daniel Bennett owed me. Owed my mother. Owed my father. I'd take it all back. With interest. I turned and walked toward the parking lot. Behind me. From the hotel. I could still hear muffled arguments. A gurney came out carrying Olivia's mother. Daniel followed. Looking haggard. He spotted me and broke into a run. Ethan. You son of a bitch. Hold it right there. I turned. This silver-haired, expensively dressed man looked like a beaten old dog. Bennett. I smiled. Your daughter was just the appetizer. The main course is still coming. His face went pale. His mouth opened. He reached for me. I stepped back and held up my phone. Everything you said in that ballroom is on record. Including name your price. You sure you want to start something here? His hand froze in midair. I turned and got into a taxi. As we pulled away. I watched Daniel Bennett in the side mirror, standing motionless. Like a man whose spine had been pulled out. I rolled down the window and let the wind rush in. My head swirled with too many things. But one thing was becoming clear. This was never just about Olivia and Zhao. The real target had been Daniel Bennett from the very beginning. And I'd just drawn the first blade. By the time the taxi stopped at the entrance of an old street in South Austin, the sky had gone dark. I paid the driver and got out. Walking down the cracked concrete road. This was an old industrial district bustling once, but long abandoned. Only empty warehouses and workshops remained. The sycamore trees on both sides had grown tall, their branches weaving a canopy overhead. Streetlights were sparse, casting pools of amber light on the rain-stained pavement. I found the address. A gray 2-story building. The exterior was peeling paint, the iron gate rusted. I pushed the door. It creaked open. Inside. A light was on. A small woman stood in the center of the room. Faded blue jacket. Graying hair. Her face was deeply etched with wrinkles. When she saw me. Her lips trembled. And the tears came immediately. Ethan. She stepped toward me. Then stopped. Her hands twisted together. Unsure. I stood in the doorway. I didn't move. More than 20 years had passed. The face I remembered from my childhood had faded into a blur. The woman before me. She was so much older. So much thinner. Almost unrecognizable. But those eyes were still familiar. Every time I looked in the mirror. I saw the same curve. Mom, I said. She rushed forward and threw her arms around me. She was a full head shorter. Thin as kindling. Her whole body shook as she sobbed into my shoulder. I'm sorry, Ethan. I'm so sorry. I had no right to face you. I raised a hand. Hesitated. Then gently patted her back. Come inside, she said. Wiping her face. Please, let's talk. She led me into the space. The warehouse had been converted into a small private arts gallery. Paintings hung on the walls. Sculptures and easels were arranged in the corners. It was old, dusty, but clean. Someone had been caring for it. Your father bought this place, she said, pouring me a glass of water and sitting on the old sofa across from me. He'd just started making real money and wanted to do something cultural. He bought it to turn into a private gallery. But then, he never got the chance. I held the water without drinking as she told me everything. Charles Shun, the name I'd never heard. She said he was a self-made man. He'd started as a construction foreman and worked his way up to become one of the biggest real estate developers in Austin. He was generous, honest, loyal. He'd pulled Daniel Bennett up from nothing, mentored him, introduced him to the right people. He'd even loaned Daniel the money for his wedding. And how did he repay him? Her voice turned hard. He betrayed him. Charles trusted Daniel like a brother. He gave him the entire bid package. Daniel turned around and sold it to the Zhao family. Thomas's father. The Zhaos were bigger than your father at the time. And they'd been desperate for that project. Daniel delivered it on a silver platter. In return, the Zhaos gave him a fortune and helped him build Bennett Construction. And my father, from the IRS office that night your father had a heart attack. Daniel was the only one in the office with him. Later people said they'd heard shouting. A huge fight. But there was no evidence. Daniel said he just collapsed. I said nothing. The water in my hands went cold. What happened next? I had no one. I was young. Alone. Terrified. When Daniel came to me. Offering to take care of us. I believed him. She laughed bitterly. For 6 months he played the part. But then he started pressuring me to sign documents, handling your father's estate. I realized too late that he'd married me to legally take everything Charles had left. When I refused, he beat me. She pushed up her sleeve. A long scar ran along her forearm. Pale and twisted. He threw an ashtray at me. I ran that night. With you in my arms. I sat outside the police station until morning. Then I divorced him and left. She broke down again. I had no money. No job. Your grandmother was sick. I couldn't take care of you. So I brought you back to your father's side of the family. I never came back. Not because I didn't love you. But because I was afraid Daniel would find us. Afraid he'd take you away. Or worse. Every year I've watched you from afar. Where you went to school. Where you worked. I never dared reach out. I put down the glass and moved over to her. Pulling her into my arms. She was so small. Her shoulders heaved. Until today. When I saw that video online, she whispered, "You had no idea what you were walking into. How could you be so brave?" "Because I was angry," I said. "And now I know it was more than anger." She pulled back and looked at me. Her eyes shining. "There's one thing he never got. Your father left you this building. An old photo album. And some journals. I kept them safe all these years. It's all that's left of him." She led me upstairs. A tiny room. A desk. A wardrobe. And on the wall. A framed black and white photo. The man in the photo was young. He had a strong jaw. A wide smile. And a face that looked so much like mine it made my chest ache. Charles Shun. My father. I'd never known him. I'd never even heard his name. I reached out and touched the glass over the photograph. For the first time in years, I felt something shift inside me. They'd taken everything from him. But they hadn't taken this. My mother handed me an iron box. Inside. Yellowed papers. The building's title deed. Old photos. And a journal. I opened the last page. The handwriting was shaky. Rushed. Like the man had been fighting just to keep his hand steady. "Daniel, I treated you like a brother. What did you treat me like?" The edge of the page was wrinkled, as if water had fallen on it. I closed the journal and turned to my mother. "Mom," I said, "Bennett's company is done. I have evidence of forged contracts. But I need more. Do you remember how he split the money with the Zhaos? Anything written down?" She thought for a moment. "Yes. When he sold the bid data. The Zhaos gave him a bank receipt and a written profit-sharing agreement. I saw it once. He kept it locked in his office safe. I found the combination. Their anniversary. I took photos." She pulled a plastic bag from under the mattress. Inside was an old SD card. I've kept it all these years. I was too afraid to store it anywhere else. I took the card and closed my fingers around it. I crouched down to meet her eyes. "Do you trust me?" She nodded. I stood and took out my phone. Messaging Ms. Chun. "New evidence. I'll bring it tomorrow." Then I walked to the window. The city lights glowed in the distance, and the shadows of sycamore trees swayed in the wind. I turned back to my mother. "Mom, come with me tomorrow." "Where?" "Home," I said. "I'm taking you home." Daniel Bennett still didn't realize his end was coming. 3 days after the wedding. I took leave from work and poured every hour into the final blow. Ms. Chun had compiled all the materials. With the photos my mother had given me. The evidence chain was complete. On the 4th morning. I stood with Ms. Chun at the entrance of Bennett Construction's headquarters. It was a 15-story building in downtown Austin. Shiny glass. A fountain out front. Uniformed security. Extremely impressive. When I walked in. The receptionist's face went pale. Everyone at Bennett Construction had seen the wedding video by now. Mr. Carter, she said. "Do you have an appointment?" "No," I said. "But tell Mr. Bennett I'm here to deliver a shareholder meeting notice." She called upstairs. I could see her face shift. She put down the phone. "He says he won't see you." I smiled and pulled a document from my briefcase, placing it on the counter. Then please deliver this to him. It's a notice of share transfer. I've formed a coalition with 4 minority shareholders. Together we hold enough shares to trigger a board reorganization. Monday at 10 a.m. At the Hilton downtown. Please ensure Mr. Bennett attends. The receptionist's face went white. I turned and walked toward the exit. As I reached the glass doors, the elevator chimed. Daniel burst out. Suit jacket unbuttoned. Face a mask of rage and fear. Ethan. Hold it right there. I turned. He grabbed me and pulled me into a corner. Hissing. What the hell do you think you're doing? Shares. Where would a blue-collar loser like you get Bennett Construction shares? With the money my father left me, I said. Charles Shun. The name hit him like a slap. He recoiled. His pupils dilating. His mouth opening and closing. You know I know? I said. 30 years. Mr. Bennett. 30 years ago you sold him out. You stole his money. You stole his wife. You almost stole his son. You sent your daughter to get close to me. Control me. Keep me as your family's faithful dog. But today. That dog bites back. He opened his mouth. But Ms. Chen stepped up and handed him a document. Mr. Bennett. This is the submission package being filed with the Commercial Crimes Division. Please sign this acknowledgement. She smiled. Included are 17 forged contracts over the past 5 years. Fraudulent transactions worth approximately $3.5 million. And evidence of the commercial espionage conducted 30 years ago by you against Charles Shun. Daniel didn't take it. His hands hung at his sides, fingers clawing into his palms. If you refused, I'll note it as non-cooperation, Ms. Chen continued. Additionally, the shareholder reorganization goes into effect Monday. We'll move to remove you as board chairman. And the Commercial Crimes Division will open a formal investigation this afternoon. I strongly recommend you contact your attorney. Daniel finally moved. He lifted his head and stared at me. The anger, the fear, the panic, all fading into something hollow. He laughed, a broken, ugly sound. You're just like your father, he said. Thank you, I said. I'll take that as a compliment. I walked past him. At his shoulder. I paused. You asked me who I thought I was at the wedding. I'll answer now. I'm Charles Shin's son. How's that for an answer? He didn't reply. Through the glass door's reflection, I saw him standing there, his tall frame collapsing like a tower with its foundation torn out. Monday morning. Hilton Hotel, 3rd floor conference room, small room. For minority shareholders on the left. Me on the right. Daniel Bennett and his attorney in the center. Daniel had aged years in just days. His hair had gone mostly white. His suit hung loose on him. He didn't speak the whole meeting, just stared at the documents in front of him. The meeting began. Ms. Chun presented the reorganization plan. On our side, we held 42% of Bennett Construction's shares. Daniel and his family, his wife Linda and daughter Olivia, held 43%, a 1% gap. But Ms. Chun had one last card. An asset transfer agreement Daniel had signed without board approval transferring 3 core properties to Olivia. It was a direct violation of company rules. Based on these facts, Ms. Chun concluded we move for a board vote to elect a new chairman. And we request an internal investigation into Mr. Bennett's misuse of company assets. Daniel's lawyer tried to fight back, citing bylaws and regulations. But his arguments were as flimsy as paper walls. They collapsed one by one. For 2 hours they argued. Then Daniel finally spoke. He looked up at me. His eyes were murky. Dead. Ethan, his voice cracked. You win. The room fell silent. I win. He laughed. A desperate, ragged sound. Your father deserved to die. That project, if he hadn't dragged me in, I'd have stayed a small-time contractor forever. He showed me what was possible. And once I tasted it, I could never go back. I had to destroy him. Or I'd have been his dog forever. He collapsed back into his chair. Breathless. I looked at him. The room looked at me. I slowly stood and walked over to him. From my pocket. I pulled out my phone. And showed him the photo I'd taken of my father's journal entry. Daniel, I treated you like a brother. What did you treat me like? Daniel stared at those words. His whole body shook. His mouth opened and closed. And something slipped from his eyes. I put my phone away and walked out. Behind me. A chair toppled over. And Daniel's strangled, animal-like sobs echoed through the room. 1 month later. Thomas Zhao was sentenced to 6 years for tax evasion, embezzlement, and fraud. Bennett Construction was officially placed under criminal investigation. Daniel Bennett was charged with commercial fraud and misappropriation, released on bail, but his assets were frozen. The company was on the verge of bankruptcy. Olivia had completely broken down. After the news of her father's indictment spread, she locked herself in her apartment for 3 days. Her mother eventually brought her home. Someone saw her on the street, said she was so thin she was unrecognizable, walking with her head down. But I was busy with something else. The old warehouse on the South Austin lot was nearly finished. I'd renovated it from top to bottom. The paintings and sculptures my father had left behind were restored, framed, arranged. I'd hired a professional curator to design the exhibit. My mother was there every day. When she cleaned the frames, her touch was so gentle, like she was handling something breakable and precious. Opening day brought a small crowd. My mother's old friends, Ms. Chun, Mark, and a few people who'd known Charles Shun back in the day. Some of them had tears in their eyes when they saw the paintings on the wall. I stood at the second-floor window, looking out. The sycamore trees had grown new leaves, bright green in the summer breeze. Sunlight filtered through the branches and splashed across the freshly painted walls. Mark came up with 2 coffees and handed me one. What are you thinking? He asked. I took a sip. Bitter, but the aftertaste was sweet. I'm thinking about my father. I never met him, but today I feel like he's here. Mark clapped me on the shoulder and didn't say much more. My mother came up a moment later. She was wearing a new blouse I'd bought her. Her hair freshly dyed. She looked brighter than she had in years. She walked to the window and followed my gaze. Your father used to love this spot, she said. He used to say that when the gallery was done, he wanted a big picture window on the second floor, so you could see across the old rooftops to the mountains beyond. He said culture means seeing far. Now you've got it, I said. The window's installed. My mother smiled. The fine lines at the corners of her eyes were warmed. I took out my phone and scrolled through my photo album. Photos of the wedding aftermath. The shattered teacup. The penthouse suite. Olivia on her knees. Daniel collapsed in his chair. I looked at them for a long moment. Then I selected them all and hit delete. Confirm. Empty. The screen went dark. Something wrong? My mother asked. Nothing. I put my phone back in my pocket. Just throwing out some old trash. She reached into her coat and pulled out a worn envelope. Inside was an old photograph. A young man held a baby. Both of them laughing. Eyes squeezed shut, the baby's legs kicking in the air. Your 1-month birthday, my mother said. Your father wouldn't put you down the entire day. I touched the picture of that face, so much like my own. And smiled. Then I tucked it carefully into my wallet. Mom, I said, let's go downstairs. Our guests are waiting. She nodded. Together we walked down the stairs and into that newly reborn space. Sunlight poured through the window and fell across an old painting. A spring scene of the city. Sycamores. Rooftops, distant mountains. And people in motion. I in the corner of the frame. A small inscription in my father's handwriting. For Ethan. May the world you see always be bright. I stood in front of that painting for a long time. The doorbell chimed. Another guest arrived. I turned. Smiling. To greet them. Outside. A new brass plaque hung on the wall. 2 words engraved on it. Renewal.